Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 70, featuring the top 5 scenes in a cave. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse, and I am the host of the TrekRanks podcast. And tonight we are returning to our Scenes in Trek series, which is my favorite series that we do here on TrekRanks. Tonight is our 6th different version of Scenes in Trek. And previously we've done, I'm going to rattle them off here. We've done Turbo Lift, Jeffrey's Tube, Shuttlecraft, Scenes in a Brig, and our most recent was Scenes on Location. And this one is kind of a companion piece to Scenes on Location, because tonight we're doing our top 5 scenes in a cave. And as you can imagine, if you start thinking about this for a minute, there are a ton of scenes in caves through the years of Star Trek. It is a classic Trek trope. So we have a lot to choose from tonight. So I'm excited about this one. And joining us for tonight's show, first up, frequent guest and contributor here at TrekRanks and the host of Weekly Trek here at the Tricorder Transmissions is Sir Alexander Perry. Great to have you back, Alex.
Hello, Mr. Moorhouse. Thank you for having me back.
I am glad to have you back. I forgot you were on Scenes on Location. So
that's right. I'm 3 for 6 in the Scenes on series.
Okay, that's good. That's good. We have to have a little continuity there. And our other guest tonight is Debbie Moltisanti. She has been on before. She was on our top 5 road trips, right, Debbie?
That's exactly right, Jim. And I'm really excited to be back.
Yeah.
And especially scenes. I love the top 5 scenes. It's one of my favorites too.
I love it too. And by the way, we have a lot more scenes in that we're going to do. And I just thought of one the other day that I love. It is so good. Spoiler alert! It's Scenes on Earth. How good is that?
Yeah,
that one's going to
awesome.
be good. And by the way, we're doing that after the Picard season because there'll be
more
cool
scenes on Earth. Yeah.
So we'll do that one in like 9 months. All right. That'll be like episode 93. We'll see. Okay. We'll see. We're going to make that Temporal Causality Loop. We're going to make it episode 93, Scenes on Earth. All right. I'm going to shut up now and get into our TrekRanks recalibration.
What are you recalibrating?
Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
Which is not me shutting up at all. It's me recalibrating. Okay, first up, as regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 here at the TrekRanks podcast is that we love Trek. We love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started, because my favorite thing to do is to talk about Star Trek. And as our good friend, the Vulcan Master and young Angry Tuvok like to remind us each week, from a scene in a cave, the main driver for all of our discussion here at the TrekRanks podcast is
Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
No wrong answers. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's about sharing the things that we love about Star Trek. So we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery and short treks as well, and soon to be Picard. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through Discovery Season 2 and the latest short treks, The Trouble with Edward. So we're now 6 episodes of short treks so far. So potential spoilers for all those 700-plus hours of Trek are in play here tonight. And one final reminder that we use episodes as shorthand, but the 13 films are always in play as well.
Hailing frequencies are open.
And you can find TrekRanks on the Net Access interface links at TrekRanks.com, and you can contact me directly at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. And you can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. That's exactly how we found out Debbie would be such an awesome guest, because she left us a voicemail. Okay, so to wrap it up, Alex and Debbie, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you guys on the Net Access interface. Alex.
You can find me on Twitter at Alexander T. Perry, and you can also find my show, Weekly Trek, which is a 30-minute news show every week on the Star Trek News of the Day at Weekly Trek.
And you can find me on Twitter at SilverDoe25.
Talking a lot of Trek. Okay, this week we are skipping our diagnostic cycle and we're jumping straight into our Prime Directive to find out how everyone came up with their list of caves.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
Okay, Alex and Debbie, how did you guys come up with your list and narrow down your picks? Because there was a ton to choose from. So, Alex, tell us about your Prime Directive.
Mine was pretty simple. I decided that I was going to hold myself to one pick from each series. So it'll be picks from 5 different series, and I would be lying if I said that my excitement for the upcoming Star Trek Picard has not managed to leach its way into my picks, which you'll find when we get there.
Okay, I like that teaser. And Debbie, how about you?
My only thing, I kind of loosely defined cave. If I saw rocks on walls, it was a cave. So some of mine might have been like actual underground, but when I kind of thought about them, you had to enter through some type of cave entrance. But other than that, my biggest trouble was paring my list down to 5 because there were so many.
It sounds like a cave to me, what you described. It rocks on the wall is some sort of cave for sure. And there's plenty of those too. I started with the brainstorming session just to come up with a list and then realized, okay, I need to find some kind of qualifier to just kind of eliminate this list. So it's just so I could break it down in my head a little bit. So I decided I actually have more qualifiers than I normally do. I made sure every pick was an actual cave, so not like a holographic cave or something like the Vidians were manipulating the walls in the Phage. So I tried to eliminate, because there's actually quite a few holographic caves. And then similar to that, I wanted the real cave to be an actual cave. So I guess that's maybe a little different than you, Debbie. I tried to eliminate the ones where it looked like it maybe was more of I don't know.
Yes.
I'm looking for like the Bat Cave, right?
Like it was originally a cave, but maybe it's been had some
I know what I did.
Technology applied.
What I did is I tried to eliminate things like catacombs or a sanctuary or something like that might have been a little bit different, even though it's obviously underground. So, and then my last thing was I tried to just come up with all my picks to have a specific reason for being in the cave, so it was a key part of the story or plot for the episode. So I think that fits most of my picks. Anyway, we're going to talk about caves here, people, and this is going to be awesome. I've got a ton of secondary systems. I know Debbie does too. Alex may have controlled himself a little bit better, but we'll find out after our picks with Third Demonicon taking us into the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, Third Demonicon. And as always, a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease our pick. Then we'll unveil our top 5 scene in a cave and the specific episode that we're highlighting for that. And we'll talk about why that pick made our list. And then at the end, we'll go through these secondary system selections, a bunch more caves. And as always, if we have any duplicates, which there could be tonight, there's some big cave scenes that might pop up on a couple lists. Make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Alex, let's kick this off with you. What's your number 5 pick for top 5 scenes in a cave?
Okay, 5-word summary. Thanks for the tour. Hashtag Shran was right. My pick is Star Trek Enterprise, Season 1, Episode 6, The Andorian Incident, and the very final scene of the episode where it's revealed that the Vulcans did have a listening post under the monastery at P'Jem all along.
I love it.
This is a great scene that totally turns the episode on its head. They very carefully constructed this episode to show you that the Andorians were villains, that the Vulcans were innocent, and you get to the end of the episode and they totally pull the rug out from under you. It kind of in a very interesting way sort of sets up the Vulcan storyline that would go through the entirety of Enterprise. This sort of, why are they kind of jerks, which you saw a little bit start to come through in Broken Bow, but this was the first one where it really kind of hit you, right across the mouth. Mm-hmm. And this is also the start of the relationship between Archer and Shran. That this moment in this cave, in this listening post that's underneath the monastery, is the start really of that relationship of trust between them that ultimately goes on to bear such great fruit. And I think lastly, demonstrates the importance of ultimately the role of humanity in balancing these two quite different species, the Vulcans and the Andorians, who by themselves get into a lot of trouble, but with that kind of mixing element, find a way ultimately to accrue the best things about them towards being part of the Federation.
Well, I love this pick because I definitely thought of it, but then I eliminated it because I felt like it was a catacomb. So I said, okay, I'm gonna call that a catacomb, so I don't have to pick it. But I'm fired up. You picked it because it's totally a cave. It's like the key, especially I love that moment where they're walking through all the dead or all the monuments, and he's like, what's down this path? Oh, there's nothing down there. You don't need to go there. So it's a cave, and there's lots of secrets down there. Debbie, what's your take on the Andorian? It's an awesome episode.
Yes, outstanding episode, and just exactly what Alex said, the whole twist at the end, and it's just, you went all through TOS with, Vulcans are like everybody's hero, and they didn't turn out this way in Enterprise, and this was a really, really excellent episode.
Yeah, I think we talked about it in the T'Pol episode too, when she hands over the scanning device. Love that pick. Love that episode. It's number 6 at TrekRanks Enterprise. Okay, Debbie, how about you? What's your number 5 pick?
Okay, 5 words. Welcome to Discovery, Lieutenant Spock, and my hashtag is logical banter. This is Discovery, Season 2, Episode 8, If Memory Serves.
Ooh, that is such a cool pick.
I consider Talos 4 a lot of caves, especially if you go back to the cage. There was kind of like the entryway there that they had enhanced with their doors and everything. But I just love this scene because even though Spock was kind of alluded to kind of all through the season a little bit, this is where he really came out of, being kind of semi-comatose and everything. And his exchange with Burnham there with can we have a better version of this conversation, and do you have anything like it was a great way to put those two together, and I just loved it. I really thought Ethan Peck was a fantastic version of Spock, and this was a great intro to him actually being a speaking character.
And you think the beard's working for you?
Oh, I love the whole I love it.
Alex, what's your take on this inspired pick?
Debbie, I'm so glad you picked this because this was my hardest cut.
So cool.
It made it until half an hour before before we started recording. Fabulous choice. If memory serves, is my favorite episode of Star Trek Discovery to date, and that scene, and it sort of falls in the kind of third of the way through the episode is really when it starts to kick up into high gear, because you get Spock, right? Up until that point, Spock has either been talked about or he's been a gibbering wreck as he was in the episode before. This is the first time we see Ethan Peck playing Spock as Spock and not playing Spock as, someone disassociated from his personality and not functioning properly. And it immediately works so well. The relationship between Burnham and Spock is established really quickly. I mean, you've gotten a lot of context on it up until that point, but this is the first moment where you watch it and you go, actually, you know what? These two don't really like each other. You know, this is not just them kind of hyping it up. Like, this really is a problem.
Yeah.
And the way that whole scene plays out ultimately, you know, with them sort of exploring that, you know, that history between them, and it's just fabulous. It's a great pick.
Yeah, I love this pick. I have like 40, 50 picks on my list, and I somehow did not think of Talos 4. And that's what we love about TrekRanks, because it's like the most, I mean, it's such a classic cave, and I have so many TOS caves picks. So I love this episode. I love Talos 4. I love the cage. I love that this is now part of the cage and the menagerie and this whole storytelling. It's just amazing. It's such a great pick. I'm so fired up. Okay, and I'm fired up about my pick too, because we're going to have a little bit of an interesting. We've never had a first round representing these three entities of incarnations of Trek, and so far we've had Enterprise and Discovery, and now we're going to have the Kelvin timeline. 5 words and a hashtag. Captain Kirk meets Mr. Spock. Hashtag Prime Spock, and it is Star Trek 2009, the Kelvin timeline, J.J. Abrams film. And I love this scene. First of all, I love that we get to see Kirk meet Spock twice in this movie. It's one of my kind of favorite things about it. It's the first time I've ever seen that in 50 years of Trek, and here we have it twice in this 2009 film. The first time, of course, is the Kobayashi Maru hearing, which is hilarious and great. But the second meeting of Kirk and Spock is just a really great emotional scene that gets me every time when Kirk's Chris Pine as Kirk is running for his life into the cold cave, and out of nowhere comes Spock with his torch and chases away the big bad, and then they meet and they have this great exchange, and they have a mind meld, and it's really kind of the setup for the entire Kelvin timeline, that Kirk mind melds with Prime Spock and now understands a little bit of the history between the two of them, and the destiny that he and his Spock are going to have. It's just really beautiful. I love Pine and Nimoy together, and I love this scene and the importance of it. So, Alex, what's your take on Trek 2009?
My take is that we may be talking about this again a little later.
We might have a pew pew pew. How about you, Debbie? Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, we could be discussing this in a bit.
Oh my gosh, we might have a triplicate. I love it. That is a rarity on TrekRanks, but recent in the last few episodes. Okay, let's go to round 4. Alex, what's your number 4 pick?
All right, I'm going to bust your Prime Directive again, so here goes.
I love it. That's so great.
5 words. B'Elanna grapples with great trauma. Hashtag you have a new family now. My pick is Star Trek Voyager, Season 5, Episode 3, Extreme Risk, and the scene in which Chakotay confronts B'Elanna about her holodeck program in which she's recreated the Dominion massacre of their marquee friends and colleagues.
Oh my God. So this is a fantastic piece. Such an emotional scene.
Such an emotional scene. It's a really great exploration of, you know, these characters who have suffered this immense trauma, but are totally disassociated from it. And they each, because they're, 60,000 light years away or however far away they are by that point. But yet still encountering the same aliens. It's a really good, deep exploration of the different ways that they cope with it. And B'Elanna clearly is, not coping with it very well. The whole episode is about how, and this is really the scene in which she explains her behavior of having taken these sort of daredevil risks and continuing to sort of push herself harder and harder and harder, is because she's so disassociated from the grief that she's experiencing that she's worried she's not experiencing emotions at all. And so, she just keeps doing these things because it's the only way that she kind of knows how to feel. It's a really great moment for Chakotay and B'Elanna, two characters who, have all this history together, but actually don't share a huge amount of character time with each other throughout the course of the series. So it's really nice when they do get the opportunity to do it. It's always really nice when we get to see the Marquee crew members, be Marquee Starfleet crew members. And also it's really nice the way that, this sort of ties into the wider continuity of the show, right? In Deep Space Nine, the Marquee had been destroyed shortly beforehand. And now the consequences of that are playing out in Voyager. And, it's just one of those kind of really cool things about Star Trek that there are a few other franchises that you can say that about.
It's interesting that you say that about the two of them maybe not being together in a lot of scenes. I never really thought about it that way. I guess that's fairly true. But when they are together, it always feels like they're really close and they know each other and they've been together. The way they play that is always really strong. It always comes through like they've known each other forever, been fighting side
definitely.
by side.
Totally. It definitely, that is certainly the way the relationship comes across anytime you see it. It would have been nice to have seen it evolve and get fleshed out a little more, but every moment that we do get of that relationship is pure gold.
Yeah, and this scene is super, super, it's heavy. I mean, it's heavy for sure, but it's really, really emotional and impactful. I love this pick. It's a massive deep cut. Debbie, what's your take on Extreme Risk?
Yeah, I mean, B'Elanna was outstanding. I just always key into that. I'm not trying to kill myself. I'm trying to see if I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Like that, it's just an emotionally powerful episode all around. And definitely in this scene, without a doubt. Alex, you always give such complete and thorough explanations. I'm like, anything I was going to say, he probably already said.
He's too scholarly for Terry.
He's very. I'm going to meet my match here.
Let's do it, Debbie. What's your number 4 pick?
Number 4, 5 words, Spock Prime in the house, hashtag our minds one and together. And it is that same cave scene in Star Trek 2009. I'm a lifelong Spock fan, and to see him appear in that film was just fantastic. Then how everything kind of, the mind meld and Kirk not believing, like, I don't know you. Like, how do you know my name and all of that? And then the other thing that I find really strange about this scene came up actually in Discovery. When Spock appears with that torch, he's wearing that like white snowsuit with the thing over his face. And when in Discovery, in the scene where the Ethan Peck Spock was mind melding with the Red Angel and seeing the future, he had that same white snowsuit hood on. And I remember, like, I thought, what is this? Like, I remember seeing that and thought for a split second, like, are they bringing like the Spock Prime thing back in? It was really weird because it was the same white hood.
I love that design on that jacket. It's so cool the way that hood pops up. And I remember noticing that with in Spock.
When he was doing that in the future.
Very similar. Yeah, very similar. Yes,
very similar. He's got the same outfit.
Which I just think is a great little piece of continuity for them. Alex, I'm not going to ask you what you think of this pick.
Yeah, it's probably smart.
Because it's awesome. All right, I will go to my round 4 pick and my 5 words in a hashtag. I love this pick. Jamaharone in a cave? Yep. Hashtag, you are outrageous. And it is Captain's Holiday, Season 3, Episode 19 from TNG. Captain Jean-Luc Picard bangs Vosh in a cave. That is what happened, people. We are Team Vosh here on TrekRanks. Vosh makes Picard happy. And if you can't see that in this awesome scene, this awesome moment, how happy he is to be challenged by this beautiful, strong, independent, challenging woman. Oh my God, this is the best. I love this moment. You guys know what I'm talking about. The episode is one of my favorites. I don't know why it doesn't get as much love as it does. Toxu Tat, Vorgons, Max Granenchik as Stovak, and I just I love this. I love this episode, and I love that scene, and I love that Picard and Vosh were an item when he was on vacation looking to relax.
You know, Jean-Luc, it's lucky for you we met. If it wasn't for me, you'd still be back there sitting in the sun, relaxing.
That happens to be why I came to Risa.
I'm sure you hated every minute of it. That kind of vacation isn't for a man like you. You need excitement.
Excitement? Spending the night in a damn cave. Chasing after something we shall probably never find.
You're enjoying yourself, aren't you?
Yes.
I just wanted to hear you say it.
Good. Now, let's get some sleep.
I'll never forget that look on your face when you thought I was offering you to Maharon.
Now, that was a simple misunderstanding.
You did seem a little disappointed when I turned you down.
You are outrageous.
Thank you.
Debbie, what's your take on Vosh and Captain's Holiday and Jean-Luc Picard in a cave?
Jim, you are Team Vosh enough for both of us.
That's fair, yes.
That's going to be my remark.
I love it. No, it's perfect. That's perfect. And are you Team Darren, Debbie? I don't know if we ever talked about that. Are you Team Crusher?
I don't know. I don't feel like I'm Team Vosh, and it's not about. I don't care for Vosh.
Oh my goodness!
I just so some of his others, like last week you were talking about the perfect mate and stuff. I love that.
Oh yeah, Kamala too.
And
I'm Team everybody for Picard.
I know, and Crusher too. So
love it. All right, Alex, how about you on this scene?
This is an outrageous pick. If you are not Team Vash, which I would describe myself as Team Crusher, but I mean, as a backup, I would say, Team Vash all the way. And this is a fun scene and a really fun episode. And you're right. I mean, the whole episode is comedy gold. And it's surprising how when folks talk about season 3, Captain's Holiday is not ranked higher, so to speak.
Yeah, it gets kind of dismissed. I love this episode. All right, let's move to the soup round. Alex, what's your number 3 pick for Scenes in a Cave?
We're staying deep on this one in terms of deep scene. 5-word summary. I hated everything about them. Hashtag Dukat laid bare. This is Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 11, Waltz. And the scene is basically 3/4 of the way through the episode where Sisko and Dukat have their verbal, honest confrontation. This is after Dukat beats Sisko with the pipe iron, and basically, tears off the cast that's on his arm. This is an amazingly fabulous scene in which you really get your kind of best look into the mind of Gul Dukat himself. I mean, the show shows you what Dukat wants you to see over the first 6 seasons. And this is really the first moment where, in addition to him sort of having gone, quite insane, you really do get that kind of best view into his own opinion of himself, what's motivating him and what's driving him. And it's a really honest confrontation between the two characters without any pretense, in a way that, I don't think we've really seen that prior to that point. I mean, there've been lots of Dukat Sisko scenes, but they've always been loaded with that sort of pretense to it, where they're both sort of talking to each other, but they're not really saying what they mean. This is the first kind of scene between these two characters where you get this really honest confrontation. And the whole arc of the scene begins with it sort of takes you through the arc of Dukat as a character throughout the whole show. You start the scene with him rationalizing his actions and making it seem like he's actually the hero, and I tried to help people. And then by the end of the scene, he's gone a full 180 and is, I hated them. I would have killed everyone if I could have, it's just, it is such a powerful, powerful scene. The most powerful scene in an extremely powerful episode. There was no way this wasn't going to be on my list.
Well, I mean, that's a great summary. And I think this one I was going to save for when we do episodes in a cave, because it's the entire episode in the cave. This episode, this is definitely on my secondary systems as a pick. There's so many great moments throughout it. Any take on your end for Waltz, Debbie?
We'll be probably discussing it again.
Oh, wow. Another one. I love that. Then, okay, I'll save my additional thoughts for that. But I'll just say I totally want one of those emergency communication transmitters in my front room, because those things are awesome.
Absolutely.
I love that prop. Okay, Debbie, then let's go to your soup round pick. What do you got?
Okay, so it's kind of funny because I knew this episode was going to be on my list, and when I rewatched it this week, my 5 words that I reheard put it definitely in the soup round, because my 5 words are it's all that electromagnetic soup, and hashtag Galorndon Core, where no good deed goes unpunished. And it's TNG season 3, episode 7, The Enemy. Wow. I love this episode with Geordi and the Romulan guy caught on Galorndon Core. The guy is just, still turns the disruptor on Geordi even after he saves him and everything. I just love this entire episode, but them in the cave there and how Geordi kind of breaks through to him and they become allies instead of enemy and enemy. I just love this entire episode.
Yeah, this is an inspired pick. I can't believe I didn't think of this one either. It's another, there are so many caves. It's incredible.
This one came to me immediately. My
favorite, I love everything about this episode with the way they work together and just the whole sci-fi idea of the neutrino emissions or whatever it is that they have to spot through, and then they have to fix the visor and how everything connects together. And I love where Geordi makes the little spikes out of the water and the mud with his phaser when he's climbing out of the
truly hole. And then climbs out of the first place where he fell in.
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I've always loved the whole, not that it's in the cave, but Picard, and it seems there was another man from your one-man ship.
Yeah, another great moment.
Totally a great moment.
And the production value on this episode, you just feel that it's so well done. You just feel like you're in the middle of it. Alex, what's your take on The Enemy?
This was on my secondary systems. Amazing pick. I'm so glad that you picked it, Debbie. The opening shot of that episode with the music and the kind of sense of, urgency, and we've got to get out of here. And then Geordi gets into trouble and, ends up in dire straits. And then, what a perfect Star Trek story in terms of, these two enemies having to find a way to work together in order to get out of a life-threatening situation. Amazing confrontation between Picard and Tomalak at the end of the episode. Love it.
Love Tomalak. And then the B plot too, with the whole thing with Worf and won't do the transfusion and everything. I think this episode's so powerful.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was one of those game changer moments for me watching this episode. And this is before like anti-heroes and kind of more the dark TV. And that moment when Worf, just watching the episode, just kept assuming, okay, well, he's going to break down.
He's going to cave. He's going to cave.
And that was 1990 when we're watching this, 1991. That's what you expected on TV in that time. And when he didn't do it, I was like, they actually went there and just let that guy die. That's amazing. That was really, really bold. And again, it's easy to kind of place it in today's TV context and forget about that. But back then, that was a amazing production choice.
Well, that's what makes Star Trek with like such deep, rich characters, you know, like it's the same thing. And Worf, especially in TNG, got a lot of those moments.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's close out the soup round with my pick. And it's a soup round, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. I basically picked 2 episodes because their cave scenes are so awesome and so hilariously similar. So my 5 words in a hashtag: unique cave obstacles, same set, hashtag ice bores, electrical charges, and lurpas. And it is the episode Kirshara and the episode 5 episodes later, the Anar. And you've got these 2 scenes, one on a desert planet, one on an ice planet. First up, you've got Kirshara and these amazing scenes with Archer, T'Pol, and T'Pau hiking through the caves, and they've got to get the Kirshara to safety, and they come across all sorts of great adventure. But I love this moment where they're walking through, and T'Pau warns, don't walk there. There's like electrical discharges of gallicite deposits that are gonna spark you. And so later they use that to electrocute some Vulcans chasing them with their lurpas. And I love the end of that scene because they basically escape through a cave Jeffries tube. They just jump down that hole and they slide down the thing. It's like a Jeffries tube in a cave. I love it. And they get away. And then 5 episodes later, you've got Archer, Shran, and the Anar woman, Jamel. And they're trying to make their way through the ice caves of the northern wastelands of Andoria to get back to the surface to return to Enterprise. And they come across, Jamal stops them just the exact same way that T'Pau stops them. And they come across these ice boars swarming through their way through the ice. And they have to kind of wait until they pass through because they have this chemical reaction as they move through the ice, and they can burn you if you get caught in the middle. And that was just an awesome idea, really clever sci-fi conceit. But I just find it hilarious from the moment these 2 scenes aired that they're so similar. They feel like the exact same idea with just, hey, one's in the desert with electrical discharges, one's in the snow, and there's like ice boars coming through. So, and this set's painted white. So that's my pick. I've got Kirshara and the Anar from Enterprise. Alex, what's your take on those?
What a bonkers pick. I absolutely love it. And you are 100% right. I mean, it is so funny that, yes, it's like, the sort of typical, how do we up the drama value of being on the planet Hell, set and going through these caves. So there's got to be some kind of natural obstacle that we have to get our way around and learn something from in the process, have a nice little character moment along the way. And that's absolutely what these scenes are.
Exactly. Debbie, you remember these from Enterprise?
Wow, absolutely. Kirshara was one of my road trips.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, I did love that. I'm Team Vulcan forever. So
yeah, me too.
Love that, and especially when you were talking about the cave Jeffries tube that they went whipping down that.
It struck me that that's exactly what that was. So. And I love the ice boars. They're just, that's a really cool little effect. And I think that was Andre Bormanis' script. So, okay, that's the end of Soup Round. Let's go to round 2. Alex, what's your number 2 pick?
Okay, 5-word summary. I offer you the chance, hashtag, to touch what he shared with me. This is Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 8, Unification Part 2, and the final scene of the episode in which Spock mind melds with Captain Picard. Yes. I told you we were going to get into the Star Trek Picard hype section of the episode, and for me, that's where we are right now. I picked this because I'm so excited for Picard and because of the Romulan crossover and having Picard. But for this scene itself, I mean, this closes the circle on the Spock-Sarek relationship until we get to Discovery. This is sort of the last word that relationship between the two characters, and it's really well done in terms of getting some closure for what was clearly a very difficult relationship over the course of the life of both men, also acknowledging the role that Picard himself had in Sarek's life from the season 3 episode Sarek. And it's also a really hopeful place to end the episode, not just, for the character dynamics, and because this is, the end of Leonard Nimoy's episodes of The Next Generation, but also because it's sort of, everything did not go well for the Romulan-Vulcan reunification movement in this episode, right? I mean, it kind of ends on, up till that point, it's kind of a huge downer because they thought that they were at the brink of making this big political breakthrough, and it turns out it was all a ploy from Sela and the proconsul to try and conquer Vulcan. So, on one hand, they're coming off of the back of a big defeat, but on the other hand, there's this recognition that some of these sort of concepts of reunification between the two races are actually potentially buried into the Romulan psyche a little deeper than everybody expected they were. And also, frankly, it's a recognition that hard things require hard work and dedication. And Spock's decision to remain on Romulus is one that, I think, based on the trailers for Star Trek Picard, is something that we will probably see pay itself off over the long run, given, the kind of Romulans that we have been introduced to in the trailers up to this point.
I figured this pick would be on somebody's list. It's on my secondary systems. I love all these scenes and love that this took place in a cave. This for me is like classic Trek tropes. Like, what? Okay, where are we going to do these scenes? A cave? We should do them in a cave.
Cheap.
But yeah, these are, I mean, I love that you picked the ending, the very final moment, because it is very hopeful. That's a great way to describe it. So, one of the biggest episodes of TNG, and I was wondering how you're going to tie it into the Picard series, and you're so right. The end of that is, he stays on Romulus, and that's where we're going to pick up the Picard series, is the after effect of what happened to the Romulus. I love it. Great pick. Debbie, what's your take on unification?
Oh, I can't believe I didn't even think of it. I love unification, and that closing moment, just the look on Spock's face is just the slight smile. If the camera was there any longer, I think you would have seen the tear fall out of his eye. It was so moving and beautiful that that's a great pick, Alex. I love it. I love that scene, and it was just such a beautiful way to close out that episode.
I love it. And we cannot talk about unification without saying Pardek. How do you know Pardek? Love that moment. Okay, let's go. Debbie, what's your number 2 pick?
Where am I? Number 2. Oh, 5 words. The Portrait of Ducat's Madness. # stupid wrinkled little noses. And it is DS9 season 6 episode 11 Waltz. The hardest part was picking out the scene in the cave in Waltz, and
yeah.
I rewatched it this week, and I was wrestling with another episode for this to be like on my list, and I ended up pulling another one off, and because when I rewatched Waltz, I was like, there's no way I cannot include this. And then, I loved the whole intrigue of like when Sisko is trying to, he's figuring out about the transmitter, and just even some of the scenes with Ducat and when Weyoun shows up, and at first when you finally realize that that's a hallucination, but then when, like Alex said, that scene where he just goes on his complete rant about the Bajorans and everything, and that scene kind of wipes out the rest of them. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And I was going to, my comments I was going to make when Alex picked it too. This is a perfect duplicate to have on this topic. I love the structure of this episode, because when he keeps going first time he does it, the first couple of times you're like, what is going on with these side conversations? Then you quickly pick up on it. So super cool way to have all those actors and characters involved and tell this story. And then my favorite thing about this episode is Sisko's savvy, the way he's playing Dukat throughout this. And I really, really like that. It showed a side of Sisko that I really like, that he's got the street smarts just to be able to take a step back, slow down, and say, okay, I'm just going to play this guy and manipulate him by letting him think that he's getting somewhere.
And that is why you are not an evil man.
But I find this episode, for me, like, I don't rewatch it all that often because it's hard to watch. Some of the physical violence is really brutal. You're imagining him with that broken arm and Dukat's just beating the daylights out of him anyway. I find it hard. It's kind of emotionally very hard to rewatch. So it's not one that I'm sticking in on a regular basis, but it is that I did rewatch it when I was for the list, and that's where I said I can't not have this on my list.
They all wore their pride like some twisted badge of honor.
And you hated them for it.
Of course I hated them! I hated everything about them! Their superstitions and their cries for sympathy, their treachery and their lies, their smug superiority and their stiff-necked obstinacy, their earrings and their broken, wrinkled noses.
You should have killed them all.
Yes! Yes! That's right, isn't it? I knew it! I've always known it! I should have killed every last one of them. I should have turned their planet into a graveyard the likes of which the galaxy had never seen! I should have killed them all.
And that is why you're not an evil man.
Yeah, it's right. I think it's like in the 70s or 80s for me at TrekRanks. It's an incredible episode, which is actually pretty high for one that's very hard to watch because there's so many great Deep Space Nine episodes, to say the least. Okay, let's close out round 2 with my pick. 5 words and a hashtag. From the cloud to the caves, hashtag dig high advisor, dig. And my episode is The Cloudminders from TOS Season 3, Episode 19. I love this episode. I find it to be super underrated. And I picked this scene where Kirk and Vana and the High Advisor are locked into a cave where they're fighting. They're digging for Xenite, and they're fighting the invisible Xenite gas. And Kirk's starting to get affected, and he's losing his cool. And he's yelling at the High Advisor from the Cloud City, who refuses to. He's just a pompous ass that refuses to acknowledge anybody or anything that they're trying to tell him in terms of this effect that the Xenite's having on the troglodytes. And Vana's there, and I just love that moment. I just think it's a really smart script, which is from David Gerald, by the way, who wrote Tribbles. It's just a really smart story, this one. It's one of these great social commentaries about the haves and the have-nots, and the fact that these people are living in the highest state and just completely taking for granted the work that everyone's doing to provide them that lifestyle, denying it to them by just saying, well, they wouldn't know what to do with it. They're not smart enough. And the scenes in the cave, I just think are super cool. And I love that they actually call them troglodytes. So it's just like that's pretty on the nose. Yeah, one of my favorites, and I love this. I've picked it before on TrekRanks. Alex, what's your take on the Cloudminders?
I mean, talk about some of Star Trek's social messages being timeless, right? I mean, income inequality was a problem in the 1960s, but it is a whole hell of a lot worse today.
Yep.
And the sort of message of the episode lands, much more strongly in 2019 than it did in 1968. And so, yeah, what a fabulous pick.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy how timeless it is. Debbie, how about you? I know you're a big TOS fan.
Oh, yeah. Great point, Alex, like about the 1%ers. I think that it really does. That's always amazing about TOS, that a lot of times it comes back to be even more meaningful now than it was at the beginning. And I feel like Cloudminders is a lot of times a kind of an overlooked episode. Some of season 3 is that way, but it is an outstanding episode. And with Kirk kind of going a little bit mad himself, but making his point down in the cave is fantastic.
Yeah, I love when Kirk's losing it. When Spock checks in, all right, we're checking in as you asked us to do. I told you to stand by. I just love this episode. It's really good, and it is overlooked. It's late season 3 stuff that it's like one of the last 6 or 7 episodes of TOS. Okay, let's go to round 1. I am really curious. There are some big cave scenes not yet picked, so we're going to see what everyone has in store for us. Alex, let's start with you. What's your number 1 pick?
It's Defiant Torpedoes time. 5-word summary. How did you find me? # I am Spock. It is Star Trek 2009.
I forgot that was still on the table.
So we've said a lot about it, but this is Leonard Nimoy's first scene in the movie, which in and of itself, instantly catapults it, up the ladder. This is the first time that Leonard Nimoy played Spock since that final scene in Unification, which would have been 1991. So 2000, 17, 18 years later.
James T. Kirk.
Excuse me?
How did you find me?
How did you know my name?
I have been and always shall be your friend.
Look, I don't know you.
I am Spock.
Bullshit.
And the other thing about this that we've not talked about yet is, this is the scene where, for the Star Trek fans like us who can name their top 5 scenes in a cave, that sort of really folded this movie into the continuity and the canon and the Star Trek that we knew, right? I mean, the movie opens and events start to play out differently than we were aware of. Kirk is born in outer space, not in Iowa. And then, the differences start to kind of mount up from there. And this is a scene in the movie where you sort of get the explanation for, what has happened. And you get this really sort of tantalizing hint and some very small details about, there's this major cataclysmic event that takes place in the late 24th century beyond the point of Nemesis, which was the last time, we left the 24th century. And it's totally shaken up. The Romulus has been destroyed. This will shake up the galaxy in a considerable way. And, from 2009 for the last decade, that's been all we've known about, what happened in the late 24th century. And in about 89 days, we will get much more information about what the 24th century looks like after the destruction of Romulus.
Well, I love the connection of these top 2 picks. It's so great. I always laugh because the first time I saw 2009 when it ended, I was walking. I kept waiting for like the reset button on Vulcan, and then you realize, oh man, they really, in this timeline, the Vulcan's gone. That's amazing. That was like my takeaway. I was like hard to cope with that. And then after I watched it the second time, it was, holy crap, Romulus is gone in the Prime timeline. I didn't even make that connection until the second time I watched it. So this scene in a cave, Kirk and Spock, so many layers, and I love the connection for the Picard series because it's going to be a big part of it. Debbie, any further comments on this one?
I just like it's not the part in the cave, but I just like that the tie back to where no man has gone before, isn't it? That
yes,
the same
Delta Vega.
I couldn't think of it. Where that's where they get stranded. I just love little things like that. excellent pick. Glad I picked it also.
It's a rare triplicate here on TrekRanks. We had one just a few episodes ago. Oh, yeah, it was the Temporal episode. So, okay, let's go to Debbie. What's your number one pick? Scenes in a cave.
Okay, my 5 words isn't the Starfleet you know. Hashtag Danger Will Robinson. And it's DS9, Season 7, Episode 8, The Siege of AR 558.
Oh, cool pick. So good.
Yeah, I think, and then I kind of had a hard time narrowing down to which part in a cave, because I really loved the interaction between Ezri and
Will Mummy. Yep.
Yeah, and just the stuff at the end when Nog was injured and everything. But I think a lot of it was that, like, Quark, just before all this stuff really went down, and he was, just telling Nog, like, your humans are great as long as their bellies are full and they're, and they've got their creature comforts. But when take that away and they turn into savages, and just him pointing out the one guy with the Ketracel white tubes around his neck, and Quark really is very, very truthful in this episode and in that scene, and it's really powerful, and a lot of his words are very, very true. So I think that's my moment that I really love.
Let me tell you something about humans, nephew. They're a wonderful, friendly people, as long as their bellies are full and their holosuites are working. But take away their creature comforts. Deprive them of food, sleep, sonic showers. Put their lives in jeopardy over an extended period of time, and those same friendly, intelligent, wonderful people will become as nasty and as violent as the most bloodthirsty Klingon. You don't believe me? Look at those faces. Look in their eyes. You know I'm right, don't you? Well, aren't you going to say something? I feel sorry for the Jem'Hadar.
I love your 5 words and hashtag. It took me a while to connect it in my head. Oh yeah, Will Mummy and those scenes with Ezri and the
Danger Will Robinson, yeah,
and the Houdinis. This is an inspired pick. It was on my secondary systems, but I didn't pick it. It's such a massive Star Trek episode, and it all takes place in a cave, basically. Well, the cave front, some of it. But yeah, I love those scenes with Dax and Will Robinson, and of course the Quark scenes, and of course the Nog stuff, which we just did our Nog episode as well, and yeah, really, this is a fantastic deep cut number 1 selection. I love it. Alex, what's your take on this incredible episode?
Incredible pick. Quark has the Federation dead to rights. I mean, he is so good at stripping away the pretense around the Federation's high, lofty ideals of itself. And very interestingly, there are 3 scenes in my mind that always stick out where Quark does this, and 2 of them take place in a cave. The other one being when they are captured in the Jem'Hadar, and they're in that force field, and it's in a cave, and Quark interrogates Sisko on him not liking Ferengi, and actually, he basically says you're a racist, and he's actually kind of right about it. So it seems like Quark does his best thinking when he's on planet Hell.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of scenes in caves in Star Trek. That's another great one. The Siege of AR 558. Awesome pick, Debbie. Great job. All right, let's go to my round 1 pick. It is a Trek classic. 5 words and a hashtag. The Chamber of the Ages. Hashtag Vault of Tomorrow. It's TOS Season 1, Episode 26, The Devil in the Dark.
I am so glad you picked this.
Yeah, it's my all-time favorite episode of Star Trek. And it's the scene where they meet the Horta, and by meet the Horta, I mean Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. This episode, it has everything. Well, this scene, I should say, has everything in it. You've got the Kirk and Spock friendship right there. When Spock just says, "Kill it, Captain. Protect yourself." I mean, that is such a huge. Just shows you everything you need to know about how Spock thinks about Kirk in that moment when Spock is the guy who's going to try to protect science and make sure we understand. But if Kirk's in trouble, then kill it. You must protect yourself. Then you've got the Vulcan mind meld. You've got, that scene, I don't even need to talk about it. It's just so powerful with the no kill eye and the communication with the Horta and telling its story. And McCoy beams down, "I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer." You've got the confident, defiant Kirk. I love when he's just kind of like, yeah, he's standing, it's 10 feet in front of me, I'm good. And he's really quickly picking up like, all right, this creature's communicating with me in a way that it's not threatening me unless I threaten it. And we're having a moment, there's so much emotion. There's it's such a smart scene. And I say this all the time, and I'm going to do it again here on TrekRanks. The Horta costume is not cheesy. It's not hokey. It's not campy. I will never understand this opinion. It's amazing. It's the most original costume. It totally stands the test of time. It looks really believable, scary. It looks like an animal. It's not, just a person in makeup. It's genius what they did with it. That's the costume designer and creature actor, I don't know how to say his name, but Janos Prohaska. And yeah, I love this episode. It's always been one of my favorites. And I believe Horta are real. And shout out to Schmitter. We love you, Schmitter. Okay, Debbie, what's your take on The Devil in the Dark?
Jim, this is my episode that, like, at the last minute got pushed off my list. So right. I am so glad you put it on there. Like, literally, Schmitter burned to a crisp. He talks about him as burned to a crisp at least twice. Everything that I was going to say, you said. The mind meld scene, because first it's almost like, it's first the non-contact, right, and then he really goes in for the thing, and and it was probably one of the longest mind melds that I can remember. Yeah. And then in addition, in that very same scene, then that's when McCoy's coming down, being not a bricklayer, and isn't this the one where he also says, "I'm beginning to think I can cure a rainy day"?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it's so classic Trek everywhere. I love this episode.
I'm glad you said that about the non-contact, because that's another smart part of the script, because they have that little bit of moment non-contact, and then right away the Horde is like, okay, I can communicate with these guys. And that's when he goes.
And then that's when he goes full on, yeah.
Well, that's when he goes, burns the no-kill eye into the rock and says, no, and then again, when you're 10 years old and you're watching, it's like, no-kill eye? Is he not going to kill them, or is he pleading for them not to kill him? I don't know.
Exactly.
But he's messaging them, and then they'd have the full mind meld. Alex, what's your take on The Devil in the Dark?
I mean, how can you beat a number one pick describing your favorite episode of Star Trek of all time? Jim, there's no way I could put anything better than what you said already. It's a fabulous episode. It's a fabulous choice.
I like the way you frame that. It's kind of a cool thing when it's your favorite all-time episode, and it's my number one for this topic. I actually looked for ways to not pick it because it was a little bit obvious, but could not keep it off my list. Okay, I am excited to talk about some secondary systems picks. God. Let's just rattle them off. Alex, start rattling.
Okay, so I had one big cheat that I was committed to having on my list and ultimately decided to cut, which is the last few scenes in the Pegasus where the Enterprise is inside the asteroid.
I love
inside
that.
A giant cave.
You know who would have picked that? Ken Riley would have picked that.
100% he would have picked that.
That would have been his, from TrekCore. He always comes up with these really twisted ways to look at it. He would have picked that for sure.
So this one goes out to Ken Riley. The Dax Koloth fight in Blood Oath, where Kang and Kor are like onlookers. It's the first time you get to see those characters be badass Klingons more than just kind of
I will
shouting
say
at each other.
I did think of a lot of Dax Worf scenes, but they're all on holodeck, so I eliminated them. But that's great.
Odo and the Kira changeling in Heart of Stone. You know, the whole plot of that episode takes place in a cave. The Kira, Odo, Garrick, all of the scenes with the Cardassian resistance from the last sort of 4 or 5 episodes of Deep Space Nine. There are lots you can pick from that. You know, like
so
Odo concealing the fact that he's sick, and Kira saying, "I know that he's ill."
I was going to say, you've already rattled off like 5 or 6. None of these are on my list, and I have like
no
20.
kidding. None of them are on my list either.
So I got 2 more. Odo and his Cardassian contact who's shrouded in the dark in Improbable Cause, where he's kind of standing behind him. And then lastly, can I cook or can't I?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's fun.
This is the one that obviously this is the Wrath of Khan, and this is going to be I think this might be. I mean, that one really. One of us should have picked that one. That's a massive, massive scene. This will be close to the Data episode where nobody picked Measure of a Man. This will be the cave episode where nobody picked the Genesis cave.
And it was one of the first ones I thought of, and I was like, well, how can I not? Because Wrath of Khan's my favorite film. And then as they just started falling out, like more and more caves, I was like, oh, somebody will pick Wrath of Khan.
I know. I kept thinking one of you would have it, but yeah, it fell off my list too. So no, but we'll shout out to the Genesis cave right now.
Absolutely.
And I've got one more.
One more.
Which is Picard and Anij in speaking of Team Vash, Picard and Anij in Insurrection after the cave.
I love that moment.
I am Team Anij.
That is, I'm also Team Anij. I love her. Okay, that's a great pick too. I didn't think of that one. All right, Debbie, how about you? Rattle off a few here.
Okay, I had from TNG. I had Arsenal of Freedom. When they fell down in that thing, it was one. Like I have.
What is with you and people falling into holes?
I know. Seriously, the special Arsenal of Freedom for me was my tipping point with season 1 of Trek. I specifically remember like that first season kind of started off rough, and Arsenal of Freedom was the first episode that I truly remember going, okay, this show is going to be good. Like, and then when Symbiosis was the next week, I knew TNG had arrived. So I do love that scene, Arsenal of Freedom. I got, let's see, there's Wrath of Khan, obviously. I'm surprised all our yesterdays in the cave with Zarabeth.
Yeah, that's on my secondary system.
I had a tough time cutting that one off.
That was a tough cut.
Rocks and Shoals.
I don't like that when Spock says to McCoy. I don't think I ever did when he calls him a half.
Yep. Love it.
Sorry.
Rocks and Shoals I have on there. I also have
that's a good one.
Some of the scenes with O'Brien and Hard Time when he's in the prison. There's some huge stuff in there. I had a hard time cutting that one. Future Imperfect at the very end when Barash, they're in kind of a cave and
I am Barash.
Yep. You'll always be
wanted a friend.
Yep, I know.
I always get emotional.
I also have some scenes from The High Ground. Is that the one? That's
The High Ground's a great one. I love The High Ground. It's I talk about it all the time, but those are they're in a cave, of course.
Yep. And my last one I have is the closing scene of Time's Arrow Part 2. I love when Mark Twain puts the pocket watch back and taps it, so he knows he's setting everything into motion again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I had of Time's Arrow.
I had secondary systems Time's Arrow, but I had the first scene where they find Data's head. So that's
okay.
But there's so many good ones with Picard and Guinan. I mean, that's so good. So many good ones.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like Time's Arrow. I love Time's Arrow. I'm a sucker,
Mr. Pickard.
I was about to say that. I'm glad you did.
There's a street I drive on every week when I'm going grocery shopping, and there's this little tiny amount of houses, and it's literally called Pickard Estates, and every week I drive by that and I go, Mr. Pickard.
It is 1 o'clock on a Tuesday.
These lists are amazing. I literally only have a few of these on my list, the ones that you guys rattled off. So
there you go. Those are my secondary system.
I'm going to rattle off another 20 or so. My toughest cuts, I usually have one. I have 3 here. Well, I'm not including unification. That was one of my toughest cuts. I had What Are Little Girls Made Of? I love the bottomless pit and all the scenes with Ruck and Kirk when he's imitating Christine Chapel. I had Blood Fever. I love all the scenes when they're trying to collect Galisite deposits. By the way, Galicites, that was in Kirshara. That's what causes electrical reactions. I actually really love Blood Fever. Memorial is one that I really thought I was going to pick because I love the scene with Kim when he's climbing through that cave. It's really claustrophobic, and when he gets to it, and then he remembers shooting those people, and it's really that's a hard scene to watch. And of course, Wrath of Khan was one of my toughest cuts. I had All Our Yesterdays, Gamesters of Triskelion, because the providers are in a cave when they're watching making all their gambling. Private Little War, because that's one of my favorite stories when I was a kid, watching the Kanutsu woman heal Kirk with her orgasmic kind of gyrations over him, and my mom walking in when I was 8 years old. What are you watching? That's one of my favorite memories. Friday's Child, Only McCoy. I love all the scenes in a cave in Friday's Child, Time Zero. Final Mission, Wesley and Picard. Yeah. There's some great stuff there between.
Had that.
Indiscretion, Ducat sitting on his spike. I love that moment. When he the kicker for me on that is when he's laughing because the dermal regenerator's not working, and she's like, "You didn't turn it on," and they're just laughing. That was a great moment. I had Parturition because I love Neelix and Tom together saving the little sentient reptile. I had Demon because I think those scenes in the cave are underrated. They're really kind of creepy when they realize that they've fallen in and they're coming out, but then their suits they can breathe. I kind of dig all that. The Breach, because the whole thing is about caves and getting to the bottom of a cave to save a bunch of Denobulans. And I had Will You Hold My Hand, because I love that moment. I am a big fan of Will You Hold My Hand from Discovery, the end of season 1.
Will You Take My Hand?
Oh, Will You Take My Hand? Thank you, of course. With Laurel and Giorgio and Burnham face off in the bottom of the volcano / cave. Will You Take My Hand? Yes. And then my special shout out is to State of Flux, because they filmed it in an actual cave. The opening, I love when Chakotay goes to find Seska, and there's a bunch of Kazon in there, and they filmed it in the Hollywood Hills in an actual cave. And I think that was a great episode and a great moment.
Oh, I got one more.
Okay, what do you got?
Distant Origin, when they return to the cave where Hogan was killed in Basics Part 2.
Basics, and you could have doubled that up, Basics and Distant Origin. That's brilliant. Okay, and then my last episode shout out, because we haven't mentioned it, and it's one of the most famous caves in all of Trek, the Fire Caves from What We Left Behind.
God.
No way we can't talk about that. Yeah, amazing lists. I'm going to rattle off a few more. Chain of Command, Sword of Kalis, Faces, Bread and Circuses, The Phage, Homeward, another one. None of those were on my list, but I kind of thought about it.
The Chain of Command is somewhere. I have this little scribbled paper, and I know Chain of Command is on there too. Like,
we're just going to keep
the Marquis.
The Marquis. We're just going to keep naming cave episodes. This podcast is never going to end.
It is endless.
There are, and I know everyone
Gambit
is
Part 2.
Gambit Part 2. Yes, I love that because they reference the awakening, time of awakening. All right. I know everyone listening is rattling off even more cave episodes right now that we haven't even talked about, because there are so many. It's a classic Trek trope. This was a fun topic. Let's get into our regeneration cycle now and rattle off a few stats, and then we'll summarize our picks.
Computer, activate Regeneration Cycle. Alcoves Beta and Gamma.
Okay, Alex, let's hear a recap of your 5 picks.
Okay, number 5, Star Trek Enterprise, Season 1, Episode 6, The Andorian Incident. Number 4, Star Trek Voyager, Season 5, Episode 3, Extreme Risk. Number 3, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 11, Waltz. Number 2, Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 8, Unification Part 2. And number 1, Star Trek 2009.
As promised, you had 5 incarnations of Trek, one from Enterprise, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, TNG, and the Kelvin timeline. Inspired list. Debbie, rattle off your top 5.
At number 5, I had Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, Episode 8, If Memory Serves. Number 4 was Star Trek 2009. At number 3, it was Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 3, Episode 7, The Enemy. At number 2, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 11, Waltz. And at number 1, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 8, The Siege of AR-558.
I love that number 1 pick. So you had 1 each from Discovery, Kelvin Timeline, TNG, and then 2 from Deep Space Nine. Fantastic. My top 5 was, number 5 was Star Trek 2009, Kelvin Timeline. From The Next Generation Season 3, I had Captain's Holiday. For my round 3 pick, I had a little bit of a cheat with Kirshara and the Anar from Enterprise Season 4. From my round 2 pick from TOS Season 3, the Cloudminders. And my number 1 pick from Season 1 of TOS, The Devil in the Dark. So I had 1 each from the Kelvin timeline, TNG, and Enterprise, and 2 from TOS. So just quick stats. I don't have a lot here, but we had 1 duplicate and 1 triplicate, so that is awesome. And here's the breakdown on all the series. So every incarnation of Trek was represented in our 15 picks. I love when that happens. 1 each from Discovery and Voyager, 2 from TOS and Enterprise, and then leading the way, TNG, Deep Space Nine, and the Kelvin timeline all had 3 picks. So pretty great to spread it around with such an awesome Trek topic. All right, as we do every week, we've once again entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
And for this week's temporal causality loop, we're going to go all the way back to episode 65 and our top 5 villains who weren't really villains. One of our favorite topics in recent times here. Really got a lot of great feedback and discussion from that controversial topic. First up, a great all TNG list from Trek Dad Dave, who is at Trek Dad Dave on Twitter. His number 5 was the Schisms Aliens, hashtag click, 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 click. His number 4 was John Doe from Transfigurations, hashtag ascending to a higher plane. His number 3, I love this pick, was the Shellyak, and his hashtag was advance and speak. That's a pretty good villain, not a villain, because they were just, hey, we have a contract. We're going to take over. He had Nagilum. That's a controversial pick. Hashtag only kill half the crew. And his number 1, and I don't think I can agree with this one because I do not like this guy from the Neutral Zone TNG, Ralph Offenhouse.
No.
What cruise line is this? Hilarious list. So good. All right, and then we had
But he wasn't really a villain. I mean, he was annoying, but he was not a villain, though.
That's fair enough. But all right, we have an all captains list, which is really genius, from Ben Nicholson at Ben Curtnow. I love this because it's literally 5 Trek famous captains, villains, not villains. 5 words in a hashtag: broccoli, coward, prime directive breaker, hashtag shut up, Wesley. It's Captain Picard. His number 4, he knows she must die. Hashtag Edith must die. It's Kirk. Oh, that one breaks my heart. His number 3, 5 words and hashtag poisoner and accessory to murder. Hashtag for the revenge.
Oh, that's a good one.
Hashtag Cisco. His number 2 was stranded ship in the expanse. Hashtag Vulcan hater. It's Archer. This is amazing. And his number 1 will only save certain people. Hashtag time traveling menace. It is Captain Catherine Janeway.
Whoa.
That's it's just such a funny list to think of those guys as villains, not really villains.
Amazing. I thought Jellicoe was going to end up on that list.
Oh, he went for the big dogs, the 5 big dogs. All right. And finally, just some more pure brilliance from our buddy Ross Webster, the Borg at Star Trek 1701. Here's his 5 words and a hashtag. Riker recollects regrettable Romulan reality. Hashtag neural scanner darkly. It's Barash. He just wanted a friend. I am Barash.
I love Barash.
Number 4, getting the band humpback together. Hashtag iPod. It's the whale probe from Voyage Home. Number 3, Seven's colleagues change their minds. Hashtag 1/3 of 9. It's Lancer, Pichan, and Marika from Survival Instinct from Voyager. Number 2, mushroom monsters murdered medic manifestation. Hashtag Giuseppe Misstep, and it's the Mycelio Network Colbert. These 5 words in a hashtag.
Oh, that's an awesome one.
Rewind and listen to them again because they are brilliant. That's another great villain, not a villain. And then number 1, I love this. Careful what you wish for. Hashtag amusement park, and it's the Shore Leave planet from TOS. Shore Leave. So fantastic list there. I'm going to leave one more real quick from Rebecca Lockley. Hashtag Anna on the Moon. We talked about this already a lot in this episode. Her 5 villains are Vash, Neela, Kamala, Anij, and Odan. So there's one person missing from that list. So I think we know that Rebecca Lockley is Team Beverly for her villains and out of villains. So many great lists. All right, once again, enough to get us out of this week's Temporal Causality Loop. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great responses to Trek Ranks. Please keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 scenes in a cave or any list from our past shows and give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-LLAP. I did that wrong. 609-512-5527. You know the number. We've done it enough times. Anyway, we're moving on. Send us a voicemail. Come on. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of Trek Ranks. And on the next episode of Trek Ranks, we're going to get deep into some Trek lore. So this is the first time that I'm going to ask a question where I think I might not get an answer from you guys, because this is one that you need to think about. And I've been thinking about this one for a long time. It's a super, super deep cut topic. We're doing our top 5 in-episode meta Trek references. So by that we mean these sly little winks by the writers and producers and the actors inside a Star Trek episode where they give us something. I'm going to give you the most obvious example, which is not going to be on the table for our show. It is the incredible reference from Zephram Cochrane in First Contact when he says, and you people, you're all astronauts.
On a Star
Trek. Some kind of Star
Trek.
That is a meta Trek reference. There are actually a bunch of them inside Star Trek. I've got a long list that I've been working on. So we've got a couple of our mad Trek geniuses that we're going to have on the show. One of them, Ross Webster, who I just read off his list from the Snap Trek podcast, and our buddy Bill Mann over at Trek Live. They're going to come up with their crazy meta Trek list for us. So Alex and Debbie, if you could think of one quick in-episode meta Trek reference, what would pop into your head, Alex?
You've rendered me speechless, Jim. I can't wait to hear what Ross and Bill come up with. I'm sure as soon as we start recording, I'll think of a few, but I'm blank right now.
There are some good ones. Debbie, were you able to
I'm kind of with Alex, although I feel like I've got something on the tip of my tongue from Discovery.
Oh, I think I've got one.
Okay.
In Future's End, when they beam down to the LA pier and Tuvok says we could have worn our uniforms and nobody would have noticed.
Oh my God, that's a great
awesome
one. See, that's what we're talking about. I don't think that's on my list. I have about 15 that I'm currently working with. So that is a great one. That's what we're talking about, people. This is going to be a really, really fun topic.
This is going to be a good episode. Yeah,
it's going to be a great deep cut dive into some awesome Trek moments. So, all right, looking forward to that one. All right, Alex, Perry, Debbie Moltisanti, a huge thanks for coming on the show. As always, any final subspace communications you guys want to relay to our listeners before we depart?
The only thing better than listening to a TrekRanks is being on one. This is such a blast. Thanks a lot, Jim. I really appreciate the invite back and hope to see you again.
Yes, for sure. We thank you so much for doing it. Alex, thanks for coming on again, man.
Strange New World.
Strange New World, a title.
Is another episode with scenes in a cave. I'm still thinking of them.
Oh, I thought that was a Meta Trek reference, because it is kind of a Meta Trek reference too. It is. It's not quite inside the episode, but actually, did they say, no, hey, where no dog has gone before? That is a Meta Trek reference.
Oh, absolutely. It's a Meta Trek reference.
That's a really good one. And there's a ton of scenes in caves. We got it all. Lots of Trek tropes. And the Meta Trek reference is going to be making fun of Trek tropes, maybe a little bit. Not making fun of. All right, we're rambling this episode. Let's finish it off. Thank you, guys. You're awesome. And thanks, everyone, for engaging with us here on episode 70 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
No, don't fire.
Kill it!
First man that fires is dead.
That thing has killed 50 of my men.
And you've killed thousands of her children.
What?
Those round silicon nodules that you've been collecting and destroying, they're her eggs. Tell them, Mr. Spock.
There have been many generations of Horta on this planet. Every 50,000 years, the entire race dies, all but one, like this one. But the eggs live. She cares for them, protects them. And when they hatch, she is the mother to them, thousands of them. This creature here is the mother of her race.
Well, Horta is intelligent, peaceful, mild. She had no objection to sharing this planet with you until you broke into her nursery and started destroying her eggs. Then she fought back in the only way she knew how, as any mother would fight when her children are in danger.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
If we fail, Vulcan will be consumed by them. That's why we have to get this thing to the capital. And I'm gonna need all three of us to try and find...
Archer, don't move.
Galisite deposits. Are you in possession of anything metallic?
Just this. Thanks for the warning. We should clear the dampening field soon.
Wait.
What is it?
A swarm.
I don't see anything.
It'll take a few minutes for them to pass. Garib and I love chasing ice boars. Once we followed a swarm for 2 hours, caught hundreds of them.